All right, you had the opportunity to discuss how to solve this with someone else. We're going to start taking a look at what you thought you should do. Throw out some ideas, how we should show work for them. Where'd you get started? Evan, give us some ideas. Can you do math so we can hear you, please?
I added up the columns, solving them the first one, so that 6, 11, 15, and 7, 8, and 15. But then I just we stopped and I didn't just add the answers. But I added 6, 11, and 16. I got 43.
Okay, so that would not exactly explain how we're going to get A, B values. So let's call on somebody else to help us out.
I did column 2, and Ezra did column 2 first.
Column 2. So you did this?
Yeah.
Tell me what you did with column 2, please.
So Ezra at first thought of 4, 3, and 1, but opposite said all same date, same value. So that couldn't work. So I thought of 3.
Okay, wait a minute. Slow down. You saw what now?
The up top and said the same shape or the same value.
Okay, so we know that every triangle has to be the same number and every square has to be the same number. Okay, go ahead.
I thought of 3, 3, 2 because so then I realized that 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 6 0, 1.
Okay, so you guys did a guess and check method. Okay, nothing wrong with that. All right. Okay, Lane, what did you guys do?
I did column 1.
Column 1, right here.
Yep. So this, like they said, the squares were already 2.
They were?
Well, that's what they did.
Wait, start from the beginning. Start from the beginning. Where did you guys start?
We started at row 1.
Okay, and what did you do with row 1?
Filled it in with all 2. That's the only thing that can work.
How do you know that's the only thing that can work?
Because 2 times 3 equals 6.
Because 2 times 3 equals 6. That's how we know that, okay? Did anybody else start with row 1? Okay. All right. I want to talk about the method that Peyton and his partner used. Okay? Guess and check is out there for the world to use. All right? And sometimes that's the only thing we're down to. Guess, check, try it out, doesn't work, try something else out, and keep going. And guess and check is not a bad, horrible thing to use. All right? It sometimes, though, can take us forever. All right? And if you don't keep track of your guesses and checks, you can go down many, many paths before you hit upon the right thing. Okay? Mr. Self is a technology marketing person. Do you know who Mr. Self is?
Yeah.
Okay? He used to be my principal at one point in time. And I had his son in class many, many years ago. Oh, wait, only a couple of years ago. And we had what were called balance sheets, and you had to fit. It was much more complicated than this. And it truly was a guess and check exercise rather than doing a lot of equations. Mr. Self got very frustrated one day as a parent and came to me and said, how are we supposed to solve these things? Because he came up with, like, I don't know, 10 equations because there were lots of unknowns. And I said, well, it's a guess and check. And he said to me, guess and check is not a mathematical way to solve this. I said, oh, but guess and check is very mathematical. Okay? and used appropriately, it's a very nice tool to have, okay? But guess and check can be very frustrating because it can take you a long time to get there, all right? So, Peyton, I appreciate the fact that your group used guess and check and tried it out, and that you saw that in your first guess that the two triangles had to be the same number, so your first guess was not possible, all right? Now, I like Wayne's group's thinking in that row one, two, wait a minute, I'm going to back that one out because I'm giving the answer away. 3 times something, right? You do that 3 times the blank, and I'm going to use the square, right? Equals 6. So we have an equation that we're working there. And in this case, we have an equation we can use. So when we have equations we can use, that can help us narrow things down much quicker than just using guess and check. Does that make sense? Okay? So either way, whatever we use, we have to record it. Does that make sense? We're not just going to randomly think about it and then poof, our answer appears on page. All right? So we all know how to guess and check, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to talk you through this, how to do equations for this one, because I don't think you're as familiar with equations. Okay? So somewhere on your page there, find space for writing these equations down so that I can walk you through doing equations so that you have that as a tool to use as well. Okay? So please get with me on writing these equations down. So row one, ma'am. I'm sorry?
Is this anyone's in here?
Did somebody bring that bag in with canned goods?
I think that's Sebastian.
Sebastian, she thinks, which would be on the other team, which I think is in Miss Dolby's room. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, oh, sorry.
Or Charlie's, they say. You know. Okay. So, with row one having 3 times the same number happening, right? Okay, equals 6. We now know that 3 times what equals 6?
2.
2. And there are methods by which we would solve this equation. If we want to find that value for the box, we would have to do what to find the value of the box?
You would times the 3 boxes equal what would equal 6.
Correct, but how would we find that value of the box? We know it's 2 because it's a basic fact, but what would we have to do? The box equals 6 divided by 3, right? Okay, we know to do that. So we know the box has to equal 2, all right? So then we can go over here and everywhere we see the box, it is 2, right? Yes, no? Okay? So now that we know that our box is 2, we can now go to column 2. And we know that if we have 2 plus 2 triangles and it equals 8, we've got another equation we can solve, which is essentially what that group did back there, right? Does that make sense? Yes, no? Yes? Okay. And if I get rid of this 2 over here and get rid of it over there, I have 2 times the triangle equals 6. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And I would expect everyone to be writing this down. If it's your part of this class, I would expect you to be writing it down also. Yes?
The first equation, it is difficult to do triangles boxes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Remember, if a variable is next to a number, it needs to multiply? So I'm using my triangle as my variable. Does that make sense? Okay? Does that help you? And if I want to figure out my value of my triangle, what would I do? Yep. And if I'm really going to show this correctly, folks, I would be dividing both sides by 2. Okay? So I'm going to jump into that step right now. So the triangle is equal to 3. Okay? That makes sense? Because 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 1 times the triangle leaves us with the triangle. Does that make sense? Okay? So the triangle is equal to 3 everywhere. Right? Does that make sense? Okay? All right? Eduardo, question?
No, I did it.
I'm sure there are different ways to do it. Okay? I'm showing you how to use an equation to do it. Okay? Because I want you to know how to use equations. All right? Question, Lane?
So we're going to keep on.
What?
So we're going to do more.
We are. Everybody got this down? Okay, I'm going to erase it so we can move on. And I know that these are 2s and these are 3s. All right. Let's go to row 2 next.
Would you like to show the first one we're on the back by ourselves?
Row 2. What?
We show the first one we're on the back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually the case. Row 2. Row 2. Row 2, we have A plus we have 3 plus 3, and it's equal to 11. It's equal to 11. All right, what do we have to do first? What do you have to do first? Valerie.
3 plus 3 is 6, and so 6 plus what equals 11? 11 minus 6.
Yeah, so we got A plus 6 equals 11. And then we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. So A has to equal 5, and that's how we would show it. Okay? Next we have row 3. What do you think our equation will be for row 3? Our equation. Finley.
3 plus 3 plus 3.
Say that again.
3 plus 3 plus 3.
Uh-huh. Write down what you think the next step will look like. What do you think the next step will look like?
6 plus b equals 16.
Good. And how about what do we do next? What do you think? What do you think? Subtract left.
3 plus
Oh, look again. Not 3 this time. 6, because we want B to stand by itself. Good. And B is equal to 10. All right. Now, how do we know how much to be subtracting from each of our sides? How do we know how much to be subtracting?
The same number.
What do I mean by the same number?
Like if it's 6 and 6, we're subtracting 6 and 6.
Yep. Because we want to get the variable to stand by itself. Does that make sense? Okay. How did we know what to divide by? It was whatever we were multiplying by. We want to undo that. Does that make sense? Okay. Are we clear on that? Okay. So, do you have to explain how we figured it out if you're going to show your algebra steps? No, because your algebra steps will explain it. All right? Does that make sense? Okay. So, let's turn it to the other side, please. Now, yes, ma'am.
Do we explain what we did figure it out? How we figured it out? She just.
And Peyton, let me guess, you never miss any directions, do you? Let me just show your algebra steps now. Now, on this side, I do not want you to use guess and check. I want you to be using the algebra steps, okay? Because we're ramping it up. Does that make sense? We're trying to increase what we can do mathematically, not stay in a rut back here. We're trying to increase what we can do mathematically. Okay? Does that make sense? So I want to see some algebra steps, just like what we did on the front. All right? When is it due? On Friday. Okay? Questions? Okay. Before we do our math writing, I want to take a look at our answers to our assignment, please. So let's go there next. To those of you who had it done, I really appreciate the fact you took your time to do it and to show your work. To those who didn't, I find it unbelievable that even with an extra day, you did not finish it. Disappointing. All right. I believe we have the evens plus 10 and 11. Is that correct? Okay. Number two. You were doing an estimate. Okay. With your estimate, we can leave this 6 a 6, correct? Okay. What multiple of 6 is close to 50 tenths? 50 tenths. What multiple of 6 is close to 50 tenths? Jonathan? 8. We have 50 tenths, okay, and we're dividing by 6. What multiple of 6 is close to 50 tenths? It's close to 50.
84.
84?
No? 48.
48.
88.
No, we don't laugh. We don't laugh at other people's answers. 48 tenths divided by 6. 48 tenths divided by 6. And when I looked at your answers, my guess is most of you need to be writing this down and making corrections. 48 tenths divided by 6 is what? 8 what? 8 tenths. So your estimate would be 8 tenths. 8/10. Okay? Your actual was 84 hundredths. Okay? Number 4. I would have changed 36 to 40, making it 86 divided by 40. What multiple of 4 is close to 8? No. 8, so we'll make it 80 divided by 40. And 80 divided by 40 is 2. 2. So the actual is 2 4/10. Okay? Number 6. 59 divided by 8. We want to know a multiple of 8 that's close to 59. 56 divided by 8 is 7. 7. Okay? The actual is 7 4/10. 7 4/10. Number 8. I would have used 40 and we're looking for something that's close to 278. So what multiple of 4 is close to 27? Jonathan? 28. So 280 divided by 40. So 28 divided by 4 is 7. Our zeros cancel, so our estimate is going to be 7. Yes, no? Actual answer, 6 8/10. Number 10, 12 friends went ice skating. They paid $83.40. They shared the cost equally. About how much did each person pay? We had $83.40, and we were dividing it by 12. This is close to 10. What multiple of 10 is close to 83? 80. 80 divided by 10 would give us 8. So each person paid about $8. That would be your estimate. The actual is $6.95. $6.95.
My estimate was 12 divided by 4, 84 divided by 4.
And you got $7? I would accept that. Number 11. If each team member ran the same distance and they completed it in 53 2/10 seconds, they would know the average time. Well, first off, we're taking this 53 2/10 divided by 4. What multiple of 4 is close to this 5?
48.
So that would give us 12 seconds, okay, for our estimate. The actual is 13 3/10 seconds. 13 3/10 seconds. Questions on that? On 314 then, number 1, $2.39. Number 2, 6 4/10. Number 3. What would we do first? Jonathan?
First, you do 12 divided by 4.
Okay, so we'd have 2 multiplied by 6 plus the bracket 12 divided by 4 minus 1. That's what our second step would look like. Make sure you have these steps written down correctly. What would we do next? That's what we did first. This is what we're doing second. 12 multiplied by 6 plus 3. That's sum, and then we're subtracting 1. What would we do next? Evan?
Times 9 minus 1.
What?
Times 9 minus 1.
Uh-huh. What would we do next?
18 minus 1.
Pardon?
18 minus 1.
Which gives us
17.
17. Any questions on the order of operations there? Our next test will have questions like this on it. Are there any questions? Yes.
My dad gave me advice to work in the middle and like kind of go like.
As long as you understand, this is not exactly in the middle. And that's why I always hesitate to tell students that, because that's not exactly in the middle. See what I'm saying? So you got to look for symbols. And that's why I hesitate to use that. It's not horrible advice, but it doesn't always work that way. Because there could be a string of stuff out here and this be clear over here. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. All right. Let's take a look over here. Last month, Dory biked 11 times as many miles as Carly, and together they biked a total of 156 miles. What would our picture look like? Lane?
Dory has 11 boxes and Carly has 1.
Okay. And what do we do from there? What do we do from there?
Then we put the brackets around it. We put 12, and then we put 156, and we divide it.
How many 12s go into 156?
Actually, it goes into 15.
And a 36?
So like 31.
What do we do with that 13?
You put it in the boxes.
And what do we do with that information then? What do we do with that information then? What? I just didn't hear you, Lane.
I said never mind. You subtract 13.
13 times 11?
Yeah.
Questions on that? And number 5, did you get 8 4500 miles?
Yep.
Number 6, did you get 475 thousandths pounds?
Yep.
How many places did the decimal point move? 3 times. What direction? Left, because we were Dividing by 1,000. Questions? Anybody? All right. You may put that away. Let's go to our math writing then. Be on the side that is page 75, please. We want to make up a multiplication problem where the answer is odd. The answer is odd. What? Hold on a minute. We need to look at the board that's available to us. We need to understand that these costs are per hour, and this is for a half day. Okay? We're going to assume that a half day means 4 hours. Okay? Does that make sense? I'm going to put that in there. Okay? And I'm going to say at least 4 hours. 4 hours plus. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're with that assumption. Does that make sense? Okay. I realize there's 24 hours in a day. Then if we were talking a clock, it'd be 12 hours. I'm not that stupid. All right. Okay. I do know that about time. But if you would go to rent something very often, a half day of rental would be 4 hours. Does that make sense? Because if you got morning and afternoon, maybe. Okay. I'm going to throw that out there. Okay. So we'll go with that assumption. Okay. So there's no confusion on that. So if you were renting for 4 hours or more, you would pay like one cost of $8. So like if you wanted to rent it for 5 hours, you would go over here. You wouldn't have to do 8 plus 3. Do we understand that? Okay? All right? Okay? If you wanted to do all day, you would have to do 8 times 2. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Yes, no? Okay? Do we understand that? Okay? Maybe I ought to change it for that. Maybe we shouldn't say 4 plus hours. That's gonna, you guys are going to question me on what's 6 hours. How about we just do 4 hours only? How about that? Would that clear it up for you? So let's do 4 hours here, and then if you want an additional hour, you have to start paying the hour rent. Would that help? Would that clear it up better? So if you want 5 hours, you would pay 8 plus 3. Would that clear it up better? 6 hours. Would that help you? Okay. So what about for 7 hours? It would be 4 hours, a half day plus 3 times 3. Does that make sense? Half day is considered 4 hours. So if you want 7 hours, you would do this plus 3 of these. That will get you your 7 hours. Yes? Okay. That clarify it for you? All right. So if you want for the full day, you would do 2 times 8. Yes? 2 half days is a full day. Yes? We got that? All right. So we'll just say a half day is 4 hours. That way you're not asking what if they want this or that. Okay? That makes sense? All right. I put a qualifier on there so there shouldn't be any questions. So 4 hours, any additional hours comes over here. If you want to say you want me out for all day, it's 2 of these. Okay? All right? That makes sense? Okay. Now, instead of just being a multiplication problem, I want it to be multi-step. Multi-operation, at least 2 operations, which means 2 different operations, folks, not 2 the same, not just like adding twice. 2 operations would be 2 different operations. Yeah. Okay? Now, because this is provided, you do not have to give me the cost within your story problem. Does that make sense? You can force the reader to go down and use the board. All right? Okay? So let's get started.
Do we still have to use this?
Mm-hmm. So depending on how our story is going to go, depends on what words we're going to choose, right? If we're going to add, we've got altogether, sum, plus, total, join, both, increase, combine, in all. If we're going to subtract, we've got how many are left, minus, remove, fewer, decrease, those kinds of things. Multiply, we've got equal group, total, twice, double, product, times, multiplied by, per, those kinds of things. If we're going to divide, share equally, each, half, parts, quotient, split equally, divided by, those kinds of words. Okay? All right? You may choose one word from the board. Does that make sense? One word only can come from the board. The others have to be math related. Does that make sense? Okay? All right, get us started.
Jen and Sally won the live available for 2 hours.
Jen and Sally wanted to ride a sailboard. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Live.
For 2 hours. So we've used our word from the board. We now have to make sure we get in math vocabulary. So we're using this information here. What?
Okay, answer has to be.
Yep, it has to be odd. Is it going to give us an odd answer?
No.
No, it will give, anything we use there will give us an even answer. So do we want to use sailboards? What might we use instead of sailboats?
A rowboat?
Rowboats? Okay. Want to use rowboats? Yes, no? Rowboats? So what do you use? Will that give us an odd answer? Can we divide $1.50 up equally? I don't know what we're doing with $1.50.
Oh, how do we do it for half a day?
I don't know what we're doing with $1.50 is my problem. What are you wanting to do with $1.50? We're so far we only have 2 hours of $1.50. What are we gonna do with it? If we multiply it by 2, that's $3. We've only done one operation.
Don't you have to make difference if it's 2 people? Unless they're sharing.
I don't know. I don't know what we're doing with it yet, so I don't know where this is going.
And then she wants to go again for another 2 hours?
Yep, okay, so that's 4 hours. What does that do for us? I don't know. That puts us over here to $3.50. Yeah, I'm not sure where we're going with this. So should we write our equation first to make sure we're going to get an odd answer before we write our story?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go write our equation and then talk about our story. That seems to work well for us, hasn't it, over the course of the year? So let's go to that. Let's find an equation that's going to work for us. It needs to be multi-step. It needs to come out to an odd answer. What do you want to use?
A half a day on a rowboat.
Half a day on a rowboat is $3.50.
Times 2.
Okay. There's one operation. So there's one operation. That'll give us $7, right? So that's only one operation.
Then she wants to go on the rowboat for another 2 hours.
Okay. So she wants to do it for another 2 hours? One person does, 2 people do. What's up with that? That'd be 10. That would be an even number. 7's odd, so we need to add an even amount to that. Can we do something else besides rowboats? Sailboats. What about sailboats? What about sailboats? What about sailboats? What can we do with sailboats? Each of them ride a sailboat for an hour?
But that's easy.
Would that work? Does that give us an odd answer? Okay, so what was the $3.50 half day of rowboat times 2 people. What was the $3? What was the 3? What was the 3?
And now we're doing seven.
1 hour of sailboat for 2 people. Okay? And it equals N. Here we go. Did we get it? Okay. Where N was our total cost, right? Right? That's what goes down here, right? Yes? All that is over here. Do I need to rewrite it for you? No, I do not. Includes all that, right? You do not have to have this business in there though, right? Right? That's just so you know where it came from. Okay? Don't forget to define the variable. N is the total cost. That's your first line. Okay? Everybody should be writing this down. All right, so Jen and Sally want to ride rowboats for half a day then, right? Not 2 hours? Is that right? We need to change that. All right, so we've used one word from the board. We can't use any other word from the board. Okay? What can we say next? Uh-huh. Okay.
After they were done, then I would try to for an hour.
Okay. So we need to work on some of our vocabulary, trying to get some of our words in and not repeat ourselves on wanted, right? What could we say vocab-wise to include our addition here? Huh?
Use the word added. And you could say,
What?
they wanted to add, they wanted to add another way of going on for the channel.
There you go. They wanted to, we need to say wanted. How about they just added on another ride? They added on a 1 hour sailboat ride? How about that? Now, we're missing the words for each because we need to understand they're each doing this. So we need to include that in the question. Does that make sense? Because so far we have not indicated that they're each paying for it. Does that make sense? So in our question, we need to say if each person had to pay for their rides or had to rent.
Or could we say, Jen wanted to, like, yeah, like, Jen wanted to pay for it and how much would it pay for it?
But we haven't indicated that we need to multiply by 2 yet. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Are you hearing me?
yeah.
Because is it possible that we only had to rent one rowboat and one sailboat?
Yeah.
Okay? So we have not indicated that we have to rent one for each person. So if each person had to rent sailboats, what would their total cost be? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so if each person had to rent their own, what are they, boats? Are they both boats?
Yeah.
What would the total cost be? Question mark. What, are there any vocabularies in that? Total, is there anything else in that? Each would have been in there, yeah, each or total. So we've got 3 words in, okay? Does that make sense? All right. Questions? Whoops, we don't need the word up here. Just put a sec. One way. Sailboards for half a day. And on a 1-hour sailboat ride, each person had to rent their own boat, so what the total cost be? Yeah.
Wait, there's in there. There's a
Huh?
there.
Huh?
Right after rent is a there.
A different there.
So we can use that there? Yeah. So what if we spell the there R wrong?
Then it's a misspelled word, and you get docked for that.
Oh my God.
So you get double docked.
It says day after half a day.
Huh?
It says day after half a day too.
What?
It says day. Wait, what? Oh, because I love to say there are. Oh yeah. Like there are in 5 hours.
All right, questions?
Or 8 oranges.
So we know there aren't any there are's, right? It's in THERP.
Not H-I-R.
Yeah. All right, questions? Okay, let's take a look at the other side then. Okay, so here I want a multi-step okay. I want division in it though.
Oh,
Okay, I want division in it, and I want the answer to be even. Okay. One word from down here. And then 2 additional words.
Hi, use math words.
How many is not math vocab? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How many is not math vocab? Of course, no, there are, and all that. Okay? Due on Friday. All right? So you have your shake ribs due on Friday and this due on Friday. All right? You good with that? Questions? Okay, get started. In that multi-step, you have to do 2 operations. Do you understand that? Not the same operation over and over again. Ready to write that down? You hear me? Not just adding a bunch.